Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. It is Thursday, the 13th of August. Delighted to have your company. Tam Cowan, Alan Rough, and our latest signing, Stephen Naismith, I'm delighted to say, joins us here on our Thursday show. It is the 13th of August. We will be reading out as many of your messages as we possibly can. And thank you to the thousands upon thousands of people obviously commenting on our latest signing. I still feel as if the best one has to go to Mark Jameson, who says, I can't believe it, you've signed Stephen Naismith. That's him now with 3 jobs: Hearts player, PLZ pundit and referee. So that is absolutely amazing. That's amazing that they're welcoming you with open arms. Stephen, delighted that you could join us. Obviously, we're really looking forward to your insight into football. But of course, first and foremost, you're back, you're training, you're getting ready for Hearts in the Championship.
Yeah, disappointed as we are. It's now the reality, and we need to basically get on with it. But that's not the only change. Obviously, the manager's changed, and the kind of new normal, if you like, in terms of what we're doing for training and stuff. So it's been a lot to get to grips with, but it's been a good start, and the manager's definitely changed the environment in a short period of time.
Yeah, how excited are you by him and the team that he's putting together?
Very excited. I think where we're going to be is in terms of the league. We've got a very good squad. There's going to be a lot of changes, to imagine, but in terms of what the manager and the coaching staff bring, I've kind of spoke to the manager over the years, worked with Lee McCulloch as well, so familiar faces, but there are a lot of positivity about there, and the way he wants to play is very enjoyable. So it's early days, but it's all very good signs.
Yeah, absolutely. The only one thing that could be difficult is when Lee McCulloch eventually shows you how to finish and score goals. That could be a sticky point for you, surely.
More using my elbows and getting into a few dirty tackles, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, great to have you on board. And Tam, I don't know about you, but you're looking a little bit sunburnt. You need the factor 50.
Yeah, caught a bit of the sun. It's been a great summer holiday. Obviously, we've all not had as long a summer holiday as the Hearts players are getting, but that's terrific. But great to have Stephen Naismith on board, although, I mean, it is great. We all know he does a lot of work for charity, and this is clearly just his latest mission, Peter.
Yeah. Thanks.
Definitely going to get a knighthood.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people actually commenting on Facebook now saying Tam showing off with mahogany and wood behind him. You didn't have that in your Motherwell Council flat, did you?
No, and it's not the first video call I've done where there's been wood on show, let me tell you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tam. I was wondering when you were going to get to that level. Anyway, delighted to have you on board. Roughie's there sporting his Maradona top, the number 10. Interestingly enough, that's a good way to start just before we get into the meat and bones of all the football. Stephen, I don't think I've ever asked you the classic, what we call, Tam and I call the classic Match Weekly shoot question, but who's the best player that you've played with in your career?
Best player with Stevie Pina, who was at Everton, South African player, and just his all-round ability and strength. He wasn't the biggest of guys, but he knew how to use his body in terms of keeping players off, great touch. Everything about him was first class. So he's up there, but I've played with a lot of great players, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and the best you've played against?
Again, it's easy to say, oh, I've played against Ronaldo, Messi, guys like that, but you're not really up against them. The hardest defender I'd come up against is Ramos, I'd say. Spain, at Hampden, he was right back and I was playing on the left, and I done more defending than he did in the night, so that was as tough as it was getting.
Yeah, and you obviously won't be aware of this, Stephen, because obviously it's your first day on the job. But Roughie's been to 3 World Cups, so just in case you're in any way going to try and brag about some of the other players you played with, he's played with and against them. If there's anybody better than Dalglish, Souness and Hansen, or Maradona, then speak now
I know my
or
level.
forever hold your peace. You know get to know your levels.
Yeah.
Anyway, Roughie, give us your thoughts. Albion Ajeti, 4-year deal for Celtic. They waited and waited, and finally, this boy has come in as a striker.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Celtic supporters will be hoping they get the player who scored a barrel load before he went down to West Ham. Obviously, he never set the heather alight down there, but sometimes that happens at new clubs. So if they get the for him, and that's obviously why West Ham paid the big bucks for him, if they can get him back playing, and the boy didn't want to go on loan, he definitely wanted a permanent move. So I think that's a good sign. He's prepared to sign for 4 years. So yeah, I think everybody in anticipation, what it's going to be like, and if he can score goals. And I hope he's not one of these players that's going to take time to find his feet. We generally get a player coming in, and saying, "Oh, it'll take him to get up to the level." I'm sure the Celtic supporters would hope he's at a level just now that they can see his worth rather than waiting a month or two.
Yeah, Stephen, give us an insight into that, because, there's many a player that's been paraded for Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, you name it. The chief executive or the chairman says, this is fantastic. The manager bums him up. And then, he either can't hit the ground running or takes such a long time or just doesn't do it. The reason I'm mentioning it to you is because, Celtic signed a player in Teemu Pukki who at times, people thought he couldn't hit a barn door from 2 yards, and then he goes and scores a barrel load for Norwich City.
Yeah, I must say I was that type of player that took a bit of time to get used to my surroundings and get comfortable before I probably played my best performances for the teams. But it's hard because, like Roughie says, he made his name at Basel, and he was I would call him an intelligent player. He wasn't just a goal threat, and then he's went to West Ham in a league where you need to hit the ground running, and if you don't, you're seen as a dud. Whereas he'll now be at a club with a lot of expect. And honestly, I found going to the Old Firm, I relished it because of the surroundings, the facilities. Every game's a must win. And he's got a great squad to play with, so you'll enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up later in the show, and I'm going to get Tam's thoughts on this as well. Not only will we hear from Stephen Gerrard, but we'll hear from Stephen Robinson as well, because he let rip at the Motherwell players, and that's coming up too. Give us your thoughts on Ajeti. Of course, Stephen Naismith just giving us an insight into players who have to try and settle in, relish their surroundings, and of course try and score goals to get the fans on side as quickly as possible. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. Great to see Naisy in there. Can honestly say he was gutted he ended up back home with the Jambos instead of back with Rangers. A top player, says Dale Martin on our Facebook Live. And of course, there's lots of people giving us their thoughts on our YouTube channel as well. You can give us your thoughts and put a question to Stephen. More than happy to relay it to him. Last night, it was Rangers 3, St Johnstone 0. Didn't quite materialise for St Johnstone, Tam, but boy, I looked at the game and Barisic hit an absolute raker of a free kick. For me, he's the star man at the moment.
Yeah, it was a cracker, but the slightly disappointing thing, Rangers fans won't be complaining, but that smacked to the same old. We kept wondering if in the new normal and games behind closed doors, if there was going to be such a thing as home advantage. But I still don't think, Peter, we've really seen that shock result in Scottish football yet. And Rangers 3, St Johnstone now, you think, how many times have we seen that result? But where it's really interesting, of course, is that because of the situation with Celtic, brought upon by Mr. Ball and Goalie, suddenly there's that bit of a gap between, and I hasten to add, between Rangers and Hibs. and Celtic. A lot, too many people in the media, starting with the TV last night and working its way into the papers today, seem to have taken the Hibs out of the equation. And I still think, for me, they've been the most impressive team so far. They've also got their 100% record. But for me, looking on it as a neutral, I know, apart from that wee bit of devilment when I gave you my final league placings, Peter, and put Motherwell up there in second, that was just me with the claret and amber specs, of course. But looking at the title race for the outside if you like, then I think that just freshens it up. If there's a positive that comes out of Celtic having to get games put off because of the stupidity of one of their players, then it is maybe watching them playing catch-up rather than being used to seeing Celtic at the top of the league almost for day one right the way through. So I think it gives it a wee added edge. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, what do you make?
Peter, can I ask Naisy something? Naisy, see the no fans in the ground at Ibrox, no 50,000. You've played against 50,000, with 50,000 behind you in all the home games. Do you think that's an advantage or a disadvantage for Rangers? The no crowd being in there, obviously 50,000 screaming down your neck if it's not going well is brilliant if it is going well. But I just wonder, from a player's point of view, do you relax more, or is the pressure off a wee bit?
You definitely relax more. That's what you would say. In terms of the pressure, I wouldn't say that's off. But like you say, it's both sides, because with the away team that's there, when Rangers are on top, or Celtic are on top for that matter, and the crowd are behind them, it just seems as if you can't get out your own half. But on the flip side, if the game's not going well, I've seen a lot of players at the Old Firm kind of crumble and not really want the ball when things are going not going so well. So, but I think overall, with the domestic games especially, it won't make that big a difference to Rangers and Celtic. They'll still have a massive advantage when they're playing at home, just with the surroundings, the size of the stadium, and the size of the pitch.
Yeah,
I'll tell you where I think it made a difference last night, Peter. I don't even know the players involved. Maybe Stephen or Roughie can tell us. But the St Johnstone player who was booked for a scything challenge on a Rangers player in the middle of the park. Referees are only human, as I keep reminding people. And I just wonder if you had 50,000 Rangers fans gasping audibly at that challenge. I just wonder if it might have been enough for the referee to pull out the red instead of the yellow, because when I watched it again, it was absolutely gruesome, the challenge. And I can't believe it was only a yellow. And, referees won't say as much out loud, but I've had as many of them tell me in the quiet that, yeah, they are only human. And if they do hear, like a jury of 50,000 people almost making a decision for them, it's very, very hard not to react to that. And I do wonder if last night St Johnstone would have been down to 10 men if Ibrox had been packed out with a crowd. Where I'm going to miss it myself, of course, is as a Motherwell fan, is when you actually get a wee 1-0 win at Celtic Park or Rangers.
Yeah, we cut him off there because he was just getting too Motherwell, to be honest with you. I'm only winding you up, but nevertheless, he will.
I must agree. I think on the referee decisions, that definitely will have an impact on the games at Ibrox and Celtic Park.
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, at the end of the day, I have watched referees, be totally and utterly consumed by it, because, quite simply, Stephen, we're asking referees not to be human. I mean, if you think a referee's not going to react when he's got 50,000 screaming for a penalty, there's just no chance.
Yeah, I agree totally. And it's the same old thing. They can make 9 decisions perfectly right and get the one wrong, and that's the worst of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing, it's a key issue here, Tam. I was just about to say to you, at 4:10, Roughie and I have been together 8 years, and I can't remember once Roughie suddenly coming in and asking a question of his own volition. Suddenly it's, Naisy, can I ask you a question, Naisy? Eight years, and he has never bothered to even do any research or ask anybody a question, and suddenly we sign somebody, Tam, and it's his best mate, Naisy, can I ask you this question?
You know what it is, Peter? It's ever since Hearts and Partick Thistle went into this pact. I mean, if we say anything in this programme that they don't like, then we want to take it to the Court of Session. So we better be very, very careful today, Peter.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, on that 3-0 win, of course, Rangers go back to the top of the league. On goal difference, Stephen Gerrard, the Rangers manager, not too bothered about that.
I don't think it is important, to be honest. What's important is we're winning football matches, we're keeping clean sheets. And I think in the main, from the first day of pre-season, we're playing at a decent level. But tonight I thought we got sloppy. It's the first time I've seen us sloppy. So I think there were signs tonight that we're not where we need to be. So there's still a lot of work to do. But yeah, I'm pleased in the main where we sit, of course, but it's very early days. There's tons and tons of football to be played. All we need to do is focus the next game.
Yeah, he's being coy about it, Stephen. What do you make of what he's trying to do in this, which I have tagged the mother of all seasons for the pressure of trying to either win 10 in a row or stop 10 in a row?
Yeah, I think the main objective, and 100% he'll be saying to the squad, is maximise these games that we've got in hand ahead of Celtic, because that, make no mistake about it, that is a massive difference in terms of playing the catch-up. It has a difference, it makes a difference, because it becomes more of a must-win for Celtic than it does Rangers, just obviously for the gap growing. So he'll be more wanting them to push home that advantage. And him saying about taking a foot off the gas, I've been there in games where the game's won and players make decisions for their own good rather than for the team, whereas for everybody to continue on what the game plan is, it just builds confidence and belief in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the overall scoreline, 3-0. He was still moaning about the fact that, they were a little bit sloppy overall. Interestingly enough, as he tries to strengthen the squad and ask the board if they can find that little bit of extra cash, he'll obviously look to try and get a few players out. He gave us an update last night on Ross McCrory and, of course, Greg Docherty's future.
Hull are in for Greg Docherty, so he's had permission to speak to Hull. We've had some interest from Hibs in terms of Ross McCrory, so them talks are ongoing. No, Ross and Greg won't be going on loan. They've been on 2 loans. I think they've done that road. So if we get bids that we like and that are good enough and big enough, we'll consider them, but they won't be going on loan.
You can understand that, Roughie. The last thing they want is constantly, players don't want to be unsettled, constantly going out to clubs and trying to get that 1 year hit on it to try and prove that they're worthy of a longer term deal. McCrory, I still think, has got something to offer. I think he's got something to offer Hibs if they can get him.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the players as well. It means the players know exactly where they stand. The manager's made the decision that they're not going to be part of the setup. Not sure the young boy would want to be part and playing week in, week out. He wouldn't be happy going out and loan all the time. So his career is going to be made for him, and let's hope, well, I'm hoping Hibs come in for him. I think he could do a really good job for Hibs. Same as Greg Docherty did when he was there. I don't know what the money is. I don't know where we stand on that. But no, I think it's good that he could start to get games, and we can see him as well, and bring his game on. And we're all trying to work out where's his best position, and we won't know that until he goes to another club.
Yeah, just on that, we're talking about young players coming through. You'll have watched them at close hand. How good is Aaron Hickey, Stephen?
He's very good. Like taking away attitude and stuff like that, the raw ability that he's got is very good. He understands beyond his years the small details of where he takes his first touch, when to take a touch, when to play it first time, all the small things that probably go unnoticed in a lot of games. He does that second nature. He doesn't even need to think about it, which indicates that he understands the game. Attitude-wise and stuff, he's very good. He'll work hard and he'll stay behind after training, kind of working more on his position in the team, which has been good. And since we've been back, I've had a few conversations with him just because I know how daunting and how much pressure you can feel when he's sitting in this situation. And there's a lot of teams kind of interested in you, and it's, if anything, you can feel slightly pressured into going, say, to the biggest club, because people will turn around and be like, you can't turn them down, you've got to go to them, when really you might not be ready for that. So the next stage for him is where he's going to learn most and progress as a player, not where he's going to make the most money or go to the biggest club or things like that. So he's got his head screwed on. So I think for him personally, he'll make the right choice. But again, obviously, it needs to be good for the club as well.
Yeah, and picking up on that point then, if you said that and you hear stories and you hear the likes of Bayern Munich and he goes to see all what's behind the scenes there, you know, many, and I think we only have to look at David Bates to see that sometimes you can go and you can get lost in the system. You know, I'm looking at Ryan Gauld, another young guy that we were raving about, 2 or 3 years in the wilderness, and even now, you know, he's in Portugal, he's plying his trade, and he wants to do well. But sometimes you can get lost for 2 or 3 years, Stephen.
You can, and that a team to make massive decisions on what's going to be great for him when he probably doesn't even know what's going to be the best for him at the moment, and that's what makes or breaks your.
I'll come back to him on that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we seem to have lost his audio on that. I'll get back to Stephen on that point, because it's well worth getting an insight into it, especially for younger footballers who obviously tune in, watch the show, have big decisions to make. Tam, I've got to ask you, give us your thoughts. 2-2. Motherwell, 1 point at the moment from the opening 3 games.
Yeah, it seems quite hard to believe, Peter, because at the start of every game, a Motherwell fan, I've not heard one complaint, because we look at the starting lineup and we think, boy, oh boy, it's a few years since we've had such a strong-looking starting 11. We look at the bench and we almost have an embarrassment of riches, but we just can't seem to make it click on the park. So it's really, really frustrating. Stevie Robinson reckons he's put his finger on the pulse of it. He reckons it's all down to application. It would appear that he reckons at least 4 players in every team so far. He says only 7 have been performing. He reckons 4 need the proverbial boot up the backside. But it's very, very strange. But you always look for a positive when you're a supporter of a team, and we did get 2 goals last night. We did get a point, and suddenly just courtesy of getting a point, we're in a lofty kind of, I think it's 7th or 8th. So there's certainly no any hitting of the panic button just yet, Peter. But it is very strange. But I'm sure that's happened many a time down through the years in football, where the old classic thing is that, the team looks good on paper, but if you move it on to grass or a hybrid pitch, as the case may be these days, then it's not always the same.
Yeah, and picking up on that point though, when a manager's angry and he started to scratch the surface of it, I could tell in the last week when I was interviewing him that he was getting more and more angry. I mean, he absolutely leathered Jake Hasty at the weekend when I was at the game, and then suddenly, yet again, this is what he had to say about some of his players.
I just think there's a little culture's crept in here that we think we're better than what we are, and I'm making sure that'll be stamped out very early on. I made subs, positive subs, didn't get much of a reaction bar from Jama. Jake didn't get a whole lot of the ball, but listen, some people need to realise this is a club, when you pull on the shirt, you give absolutely everything, otherwise you won't play for
it. What about that, Roughie?
Yeah. Well, it's like Tam's saying, there's an expectation for where you finished the year before, and how well they were doing, and everybody was all pulling in the right direction, and then you get a start of the season and it's not quite up there. And sometimes it's hard to get your head around, because the quality of the players you've got, they're just not turning it on. But I'm like Tam, I just think it's just a matter before it turns. But you need wins to turn it. You need the confidence to get back. But you can see the manager, his expectation is that Mother will finish up there again, 3rd this year, and that's why he's so disappointed in the start.
Yeah, well, I tipped him to finish.
Sorry, Peter, seeing you talk as well about the crowds and the effect of closed-door football. one guy, for example, I think who's a great example of that, if you like, is Jake Hasty, because quite frankly, he hasn't kicked a ball yet back at Mull, but he was the sort of guy previously at the club that when the ball came to his feet, there was a wee buzz went up round about the crowd, and he definitely got a lift for the noises coming for the stands at Fir Park, and he's clearly not had that because he's playing in front of an empty stadium, and I just wonder if he's one such player that really thrives when he's playing in front of a crowd, unlike the situation we have now.
Yeah, well, listen to what Stephen Robinson had to say about some of the players and their performances. Only 7, he reckons, pulling their weight.
There's some decent performances. Big Jordan, Bevis, I thought done well. I thought Sherwin and Phases done well. Some of the other boys got a reality check tonight. I've been patient. I've cajoled people. I'm not one at rants and rave, but I can assure you there are no uncertain terms what I expect when you put on a shirt for this football club, because some people did not perform and have not performed since they come back to this club. Expecting moves to happen, expecting just to walk into the team, not dealing with being left out of the team. So they can't deal with that, they won't play with me. I'm expecting a big reaction.
Stephen, sometimes, you know, if you join a big club and you're farmed back out on loan, or you go out on loan to another club, I've watched some players who actually think they're maybe, you know, doing the club they join on loan a favour. I think maybe, you know, he's having a dig at some players and saying, listen, you can come back here on loan, but if you don't give it your all, I'm not going to pick you, you're out.
Yeah, and that feeling only lasts so long because, like the manager's saying, if you're not performing, you will soon be on the bench. It can be difficult going back to kind of the young player side of it. You get the big move and the euphoria of that, and everybody delighted for you, and having to move back on loan can sometimes feel like a step back. You've maybe not been good enough when that's not the case, really, in all circumstances. So he needs to just get back to doing well, and I'm sure the results will pick up, to be honest.
Yeah, and just picking up on your point there, which you were talking about earlier, we missed out on with Aaron Hickey. The sweetener could be, oh, it's Bayern Munich or something like that. What's the best advice for someone like that who, like many others, could disappear?
Yeah, that's a lot of youngsters see the big teams and they think, brilliant, I'm going there, and it's going to be the exact same as what situation they're in now, playing in a first team, travelling with the first team, when really, if you're a young player moving, you might be moving to be part of the reserve team, to move up to the first team, and it's not what you expected. So it's, like I said before, it's massive decisions on such young guys' heads to make. But short term, he needs to get fit no matter what happens. So his attitude's been spot on since he came back. And I said to him, look, if something's going to happen, it'll happen. And if it doesn't happen now, if he continues to progress the way he has, the move will come. Don't chase a move that you don't feel's right, or that you doesn't suit or doesn't tick every box, because that move will come. The right one will come along when the time's right.
Yeah, and on that basis, I remember.
Do you think, Stephen, sorry, Peter, do you think, Stephen, that he would move to Bayern Munich even if it meant missing out on the possibility of a winner's medal in the Iron Brew Challenge Cup?
See, to be honest, I would say he's not like the majority of young players that come through, in all honesty. He's not led by materialistic things or things like that. So I think his future and where he wants to go in the game. A prime example is he left Celtic as a young player because he didn't feel he was going to get the opportunity to come back to Hearts, and he came through at Hearts, and it's been the best decision he made.
Yeah, so he's got a sensible head on his shoulders. Just on that point, I can remember you as a fresh-faced youngster, everybody raving about you at Kilmarnock. You had that large crop of blonde hair on your head. What was the best bit of advice that you got that you then made your decision, I can handle the heat of Rangers?
I was fortunate to have Durante as a coach at Kilmarnock, and me being young and naive was just asking him about stories, about everything related to Rangers when the kind of interest came up. And I would say he gave me the reassurance that I was good enough. And following that on, when you go to Rangers and you get a bad knee injury, that similar circumstances that he dealt with, he was somebody who really gave me that belief that I could make it, because it can be a really tough environment because there's 25 guys in a squad there trying to take your place. It's not, everybody's good and the morale's good and stuff, but when it comes down to it, only 11 are playing, and I found that tough, that I need to play, I need to play, I need to play, and he reassured me quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, interesting insight into it as well. Listen, 2-2 with Motherwell and Livingston, so clearly we'll wait to see if he gets the response from the Motherwell players. Livy, of course, Lyndon Dykes. Interestingly enough, Roughie, he took his penalty well enough, but he's one of those players that's been at the forefront of everybody's thoughts, but still nobody's biting to pay the $2 million that Livy want.
No, I think the nearest I've got is 1.2 for Barnsley. But again, he had a fantastic season last year. He's got a lot to live up to as well. And if he knows that teams are watching him, which there will be, there'll be people at the game assessing, is he worth 2 million? Do we pay the 2 million? So he's got to go out and perform as well. You know, he's not hit the heights of what he was doing last year yet. But I think we all know what he can do. We all know the asset he's got for that Livingston side. So it's just, I think he's just got to convince the clubs out there who are looking for him. I think 2 million is a bit much, to tell you the truth. I think if they were to get maybe 1.15, something like that with add-ons, it'd be a good move. But I think we all know, and we're all waiting to see what country he wants to play for a start. He's taking his time in that one. I'm surprised nobody's sort of pushing him on that one, you know, so we know where we stand. But I suppose he thinks he's got all the time in the world, but we're getting close to some important games, and he would certainly add to our pool anyway.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't score between now and October, let's hope that he selects Australia to join. But if he starts battering in the goals, we need to get into his head. I mean, Tam, you've got to admit, I tried like a madman to get him to tell us what he was going to do, but he wasn't for budging.
It's a strange one. And even the situation with flights now globally, you think you just say, stuff it, I'll just stick with Scotland. You know, I'm not going to be going to Sydney anytime soon. You know, although on that note, talking of flights, I thought Rangers missed a trick last night. I thought that after beating St Johnstone 3-0, Stevie G should have sent the entire squad in a club 18 to 30 holiday to Ibiza, brought them back next week, no quarantine. Nicola flashes a red card. Neil Doncaster calls the league, and Rangers have got one in a row.
Tom, it has been suggested, let me tell you, even last week the Hibbies were looking for the league to be called. I mean, on that point, there's the underlying story that's been non-stop this week, Stephen. A lot of people are saying, managers are saying, wait a minute, if a player on such a huge issue as this breaks the rules, the player should suffer the wrath and the punishment, whereas we've had pundits up and down the country saying, no, the club has to suffer. There should have been points deduction with a situation like this.
Yeah, it has been a hot topic. I think players in general are a lot of the time in this bubble where it's pretty clear what is to do, what's not to be done. And when there's these kind of grey areas, and I think even when the First Minister came out and said for a footballer, you should go to training, go home, go to training, play the games, go home, and that was it. I must be honest and say at that moment I didn't realise that was what was expected when it all restarted. But there is a lot of common sense in there, and getting a flight to Spain isn't something that couldn't be missed, really, is one of them. So overall, I personally think it should, as a club as a whole, you should be one group that monitors between each other, and it goes from there, really. I think the warning shots have been fired now, so it's now time to get on with it.
Yeah, listen, the one question that remains unanswered, Roughie, that I'm dying to know is, why would you go to Spain? Why did you go to Spain for a day? I mean, it's the one thing that I think Celtic have to find out. Why did you go to Spain for a day? Now, if on if on the steps of Partick Thistle or Celtic Park, calm down and I'll get to you. If on the steps of Celtic Park, Alan Rough was standing there, and and they've said he's nipped out to Spain for a day. Now, 2 or 3 options would enter my head about why you've nipped out for a day. The speculation has been, in 1,000,001 occasions, has been quite simply, listen, he could have, and I'm only giving you the gossip and the rumour on it. He could have nipped out to see an agent because he's not happy. He wanted to get out. I'm dying for somebody at Celtic to say this is his reason for going to Spain for one day.
Yeah, but as we spoke about it yesterday, it wouldn't matter what his reasoning was. It would be accepted. I don't care what it was. We've already discussed maybe an illness in the family or something like that. There's been illness in the families all the way through this pandemic, so that's no excuse either. He's not got nothing that he would ever come out with, or whatever Celtic come out with would be acceptable. I think that's the bottom line of the whole thing. I think everybody would agree with that. So I think they're better just keeping it in-house and just deal with him accordingly. I agree. In that instance, I think it's a player that should be, fined or whatever, rather than the team. As far as the Aberdeen one was concerned, you'll probably correct me in this, but I thought Aberdeen's just played that game without the players that were affected. I should think they should have been made to play the game and deal with it the way they had to. If it was reserves they had to play, then play the reserves, because they've all been tested anyway. They're all getting tested twice a week. So I thought it should have been, the advantage should have went to St Johnstone. St Johnstone aren't going to get that advantage now, because the next time they play them, all these players are probably back playing. So to me, there's no advantage of cancelling that game.
Yeah, the only problem I would say that legitimises the cancellation of the game is the government intervened, Roughie. It wasn't a case, I think the SPFL, if they could have, would have actually said, look, the game goes ahead, you will take the penalty of not having these 8 players. So suddenly, Stephen, when the government intervenes and said, look, this game's not going ahead because it's such a huge number, and we have to keep a tight lid on things. And she did mention as well, I mean, she shut down the area of Aberdeen because of the pandemic and that spike in the first place.
Yeah, and that, when the government's getting involved in it, everybody's hands are tied effectively. They're taking full control, and that in the whole is the bigger picture here. We're in the middle of a pandemic that sport can play second fiddle to that. But I think from the moment, and again from the First Minister's comments, the line has been drawn now. There is no more chances, and to be honest, I think that is enough of a wake-up call for everybody involved.
Yeah, was there a fear? I mean, when everybody talks about it, was there a fear within the hearts of I would wonder if all the championships thinking, whoa, wait a minute, we're already having to wait to October to kick a ball. This could really set us back. I know that Falkirk's Lee Miller was talking about that today. This could jeopardise even the lower leagues. I think that the thing that was lost on everybody, Stephen, is they didn't realise the enormity of the earthquake effect that would have throughout football. Mm-hmm. Clubs possibly closing, players losing their jobs, businesses attached to football potentially affected by it.
Yeah, and that, again, on the face of it, people just think it's a game of football that's been called off. But you're right, there's so much more goes into the background of these things. I didn't feel as if it would have a massive impact on us because we've still got about 8 weeks away. But the closer it does get, it does have more of an impact. I think the lower leagues will look at how things have been done in the Premier League, and they'll try and kind of mimic that in terms of the process, getting to games, going to games, testing and stuff like that, which hopefully for us in the kind of lower divisions makes things a bit more seamless.
Fiona Docherty on Facebook says, doesn't really matter why he went to Spain. The fact is he did, and he shouldn't have. Peter Rock says, football clubs can only be responsible for its employees as much as any other business. He should be sacked, and that be the end of it. I mean, the amount of people on Facebook who've all got so much of an opinion on this. Some believe the club should have been punished. Some believe the players should be punished. There's so many people with different opinions on it. Thanks to the thousands, obviously, lots of really good messages. Andrew Breslin, of course, is. I mean, we do read out good messages, but we do read out messages where we're all getting leather. Don't worry about that. Andrew Breslin says, "Afternoon, Naisy, please be injured for the semi-final." So there you are. There's somebody who clearly doesn't want Hearts to reach the final of the Scottish Cup. Tam, I like to highlight from time to time older players who still have it, who still got it. I watched Chris Burke hit an absolute raker for Kilmarnock against Hibs. It was a peach, and he told me at the end of the game, Tam, that he works and he has been working on free kicks to try and master, little techniques that can give him that edge. This is a boy at what you would call the twilight of his career, and he came up last night up at Ross County and scored an absolute cracker again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see any reason why you shouldn't put a wee bit of practice into free kicks, because into the veteran stage, Peter, the beauty of any dead ball situation is it's just the player and the ball. You don't have any young whippersnapper opponents crashing in. You don't need to worry about pace. All you need to worry about is what's up there and the skill that you have in your right or left boot. So I know that's Chris Burke, saying that he has put a bit of practice into that. It's maybe something for Stephen Naismith to have a wee think about as he enters the twilight years of his career, because I'm worried that in October that Stephen is going to take a knee in the first game back and he won't be able to get back up again.
Get back up.
So,
I'm worried about that too, by the way.
So I can see why when you get to the veteran stage, being the classy kind of dead ball expert is absolutely superb, But I must go back, Peter, because you were battling away there about ball and goalie. What I'd like to say there as well, you've got loads and loads of Celtic fans that watch this programme. I think they and others are actually entitled to an explanation from Celtic as to why ball and goalie did go to Spain, because they're the guys that effectively pay his wages, and this has been left dangling. There's been loads of speculation. I was only joking earlier about him going in a fag run and bringing, Benson's back for all the players and all the rest of it and their favourites, but that, of course, is nonsense. Roughie's saying as well, on a serious note though, Roughie's saying that always he's visiting an ailing relative or whatever. I don't need to be too much of a cynic to suggest that if that had been the case, I think we would have heard about that by now. Because if I was Mr. Ball and Goalie, I would have been quick to remind everybody that's exactly what I was doing to try and get a wee bit of sympathy. But the guy basically got caught. The Celtic fans, as you can see to a man, are absolutely furious. I've got a slight wry smile though when I hear the Celtic fans ordering the club to sack him. And I'm assuming, of course, if it had been Callum McGregor or Odsonne Edouard, they would have been absolutely demanding his P45 as well, But there's a fringe player, and I'm sure that fringe players are much easier to deal with in these circumstances. But I was actually very heartened by the attitude of the Celtic fans who did picture the global picture, if you like, and thought, this is absolutely crazy what this guy has done. And they have demanded that he is sacked. But as I say, for me, it makes the whole thing a wee bit interesting, with Celtic effectively now playing catch-up. All the managers say, it's great just to get the points on the board. That's what they want. So Steven Gerrard and indeed Jack Ross, they're in that position now. They've got the 9 points on the board. And it'll be really, really nice to see what develops. Does that put a wee bit of pressure on Celtic in games that they ordinarily wouldn't be under pressure? I think it just makes it more interesting for particularly the neutral spectator.
Yeah, lots of people got their opinion on it. Of course, Roughie did actually highlight your point yesterday on the programme, Tam, saying basically he's not so sure it would have been the same had it been an Edouard. There may be a little bit more forgiveness if it's a big key player that was doing it. But listen, that's all speculation on it. Hugh Hepburn Duff says, Peter, I'm Rangers through and through, as you know, and Celtic should not be punished as it was an individual idiot who decided to go to Spain. That's Hugh's opinion on it. Regardless policy says we are the most successful team in football. We don't need help from the SPFL, and we will win the league on the park, he says. 55 is coming for sure. And he's posted 2 or 3 Union Jacks and a Spanish flag. So there you are. I always like to read out what people put in their posts on Facebook. There are some which are very sensible. I would say to you, and you'll get a little flavour of this, Stephen. 95% are football fanatics, passionate about the game, but every now and then we do get, I'm not suggesting Hugh's this character, he's just a Rangers fan who loves his club, but we do get the odd 5% who are complete and utter nutcases who really don't grasp what it's all about, football. So we try and 95% of the people, we promote them because they are passionate about their football. Now, what about the games that have been played? We always like to, after the games have been played, obviously Aberdeen and Celtic weren't involved, we try to get a team of the week. Our reporter Gabriel Antoniazzi has picked his team.
John McLaughlin could displace Alan McGregor as number 1 if he keeps making saves like he did yesterday. Josh Doig is only 18 but is standing out in this Hibs side. Ryan Porteous is just a few years older but leads the backline as if he were a veteran. Alex IACOVITTI has made a good start to life at County, they're still unbeaten. Borna Barisic curled in a trademark free kick and assisted Ryan Kent's goal. Alan Forrest was rewarded for strong attacking play all game with his first Livy strike. Alan Power is back to his best and scored in typical style, slide tackling the ball in. David Turnbull showed why he is so sought after with his tidy finish. Glenn Kamara controlled the midfield and impressed throughout. Chris Burke made it 3-3 when he fired into the roof of the net. Christian Doig scored the only goal as Hibs stayed top of the table.
So there's your team of the week. I know it's going to be difficult for you to comment on this, Stephen, but from a Scotland perspective, I really hope that Ryan Porteous can suddenly emerge as a serious contender in the back line. We need a number of centre-backs for Steve Clarke to pick so that we can get ready for that playoff.
It's been the area since I've been involved with the manager that he's probably not had a collective group of centre-halves consistently there to either build a relationship or give him food for thought. Ryan came into some of the previous squads there before lockdown and got a taste of being around the environment, which will stand him in good stead. But all he can do is play well at club level. They've started well, so I'm sure the manager will have an eye on him. But then you've got Coops as well, who might come back into the fold, who's just been promoted with Leeds, who's another one that's not had that run and getting to show the manager what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see how he develops and keep an eye on him anyway. If you're a Hibs fan, you can give us your thoughts on that too. I'll tell you one thing, Tam, which is going to be a blow. Never mind the 8 Aberdeen players that have been ruled out. I think Aberdeen are going to be toiling when they get back to actually play anybody up front, because the way things are looking in the next time they're allowed to play, Bruce Anderson seems to be the only man fit up front, because you're looking at Ryan Edmondson. He's gone back to Leeds United. He's out for 4 months, broken his ankle.
Yep, it is. I mean, even before all this kicked in and the Aberdeen players were out in the Randan Saturday night, there were worries, of course, just the very fact that Curtis Main and Sam Cosgrove are out. So I think Aberdeen are desperately going to have to try some players, because whatever their aspirations are this season, whether they're ultimately looking at finishing third, who knows, they might fancy themselves for second, but they're not going to go anywhere without a striker and somebody to score goals. So that looks as if it is, who knows, maybe Nicola Sturgeon has done them a favour in that respect, and she's cancelled a couple of games, and that's allowed them not to go into matches without a striker. But it's going to be very, very interesting there, and see if Dave Cormack can come up with some do-re-mi to bring in a striker, because they clearly definitely need one. Derek McInnes must be battering his head against the dressing room wall.
Yeah, and the pressure's right on you, Stephen. I'm going to let you off this week, but all I'm telling you is you're going to have to give us your 1 to 12 on how you think the Premiership is going to finish. And you're smiling at
I'll
the
have a think
moment,
about
but
that.
it's a tough one, let me tell you, because there's been a few shocks along the way. Tam, who clearly could only, this is his excuse, by the way, Tam could only think of 11 teams, and then he realised he'd forgotten Livingston, so Livingston was
Just
suddenly bumped into
relegated.
12th, you know. So you got to get your thinking cap on. We'll be getting that team off you in time for next Thursday's show. Over and above that, here's a look at the Premier League table to get a sense of where everybody is at the moment. Because the one thing, and I'm sure Stephen will be able to shed light on it, there's Rangers, Hibs there, Ross County, Celtic further back with a game in hand, and at the bottom end there you've got Aberdeen and Hamilton. You've been in teams that have won the league, Stephen. You've been in teams that have lost the league. It's a strange situation. Nobody really, I mean, you can understand where Stephen Gerrard's coming from. Nobody really at this point is going to be looking too much at the table. I always look at Sir Alex Ferguson. I always remember him saying, they don't hand the titles out October, November, December. It's March and April when Man United used to make their push regularly.
Yeah, I've always found over the years managers cut the fixture list up rather than looking at the league table. And that's what I was saying earlier about Rangers. They'll be talking about these games they've got in hand, get them in the bag, get the points, and move on. And then you'll maybe come to an international break. And if we can get to that next international break with X amount of points, that's how I genuinely find managers have worked most of the start of seasons. But with the teams at the top, with us with Hearts, when we started quite well, that going into the next game after winning the last one, that momentum was building and building and building. So I think for the teams at the top, that's always a good gauge to go with. Just keep ticking the games off, getting points, and staying in the top kind of 4 places.
Yeah. Okay. There's a couple of things that in the lower part of the table that I'm going to be interested in, Roughie. I like the fact that Jim Goodwin sums up a manager who's doing his homework. Now, I think St Mirren looked good at the back end, Roughie, but at the front end, he knows he needs a striker. This is what he had to say in his interest in PSV striker Joel Piri.
I spoke to John de Jong, the director of football, and I asked him to put our name on the list, but obviously Joel is a very talented young footballer. He played a number of games for Sparta Rotterdam last year in the Eredivisie. He's attracted good interest from other clubs, and I mean, like I say, we're in the hat. It's a bit of a long shot, but at the same time, if you don't ask, you don't get. And we've asked the guys at PSV to be open-minded to it. We'll hope to hear back probably by the start of next week.
I like his attitude, Ruffy. Get in there. Why not? It might just entice a player over that we wouldn't get the chance to see.
Yeah, it just shows you the modern day manager has his finger on the pulse. He has to know what players are available. Keeping your eye on some players, who have been at clubs where you might not get them, then you just identify where they've ended up. But that's a done deal for me as soon as the boy knows he's coming to Paisley.
Yeah, you are going to get leathered, by the way. I am telling you right now. I have got a lot of mates in Paisley, and they wouldn't think twice about visiting you. Calm your jets, to be honest with you. But we will eventually get to Ayrshire. I'm almost certain, Stephen, because Tam will get to it at some point in the show. Just out of curiosity, here's the thing about it. We can go back through so many players down through the years, Tam, that have the right attitude. Stephen touched on it at the top of the programme. Mesut Ozil has put a statement out today, which I thought just at some points for fans, they must just lose faith in their team. Mesut Ozil, who I think has been a complete waste of time for the last year and a half, has said, my position is clear. I'm here to the last day of our agreement at Arsenal. I'll give everything I have for the club, but I will decide when I go, not other people. And this is because I think people have been trying to get him out the door at Arsenal, and he's not for budging. And the same can be said of Gareth Bale. He's on £600,000 a week.
Exactly. I always get back to the brilliant Bobo Balde story when, according to legend, he'd gone in and Peter Lawwell was basically trying to reduce Bobo Balde's wages. He was on something like 33 grand a week, and Peter Lawwell was meant to have been almost pleading with him, and he's saying, "Come on, Bobo, I'm the chief executive of Celtic. I've got to really look after the pennies." And Bobo's response was just, "I'm the chief executive of Bobo Balde." And that was it. That was it. Yeah, I'm not reducing my money by a penny. But nothing surprises you in English football. I mean, there was it 2 weeks ago, the boy Sanchez went for Man United to Inter Milan, and he was dropping £300,000 a week. Because he's now only on 200 grand a week from the 500 grand a week he was on Man United. I mean, it is absolutely bonkers, so nothing will ever surprise me the minute I start hearing about English Premiership.
Well, listen, I'll tell you even better than that. I read a story this morning. Basically, I think the Spanish journalist, and he's in the know, as you know, over in Spain, Guillem Balaguer, has basically said that George Mendes is trying to get Ronaldo out of Juventus. They want to cut their wages, and Andrea Pirlo wants to build his own team, and they want to get him off, and they've touted it to Barcelona. Can you imagine Ronaldo at Barcelona? That would be unbelievable. But nevertheless, Stephen, I always hear Fraser Wishart in my ear saying, hey, calm your jets. The club signed the player on the contract. It's not the player's fault they don't want to honour it.
Yeah, that's the argument. I think it's always a difficult one because you've got, again, on the face of it, players, the amount of times I've been out and people having a conversation with you and you're like, one question that comes up all the time is, how many days a week do you train? So the persona for a lot of folk is if you just turn up a couple of nights a week, get a bit of training and then turn up on a Saturday, when really there's much more to it. And it's the same with the contracts. Players sign a contract, expect that to be their contract, and from a business point of view, that is what it is. But I think in certain circumstances, there's got to be an element of, we've had it ourselves at Hearts, having to take a pay cut, and it's more an element of the bigger picture, and guys who work 9 to 5 at the club or at the club all hours, making it tick, are effectively the ones that are going to be first to lose their jobs.
Yeah,
but
and
Peter,
it's good
you have to say, Peter, what does Fraser Wishart know? Because I can also hear him saying in your ear, Peter, I'm going to hire Jason Byrne to entertain the crowd at the PFA Awards. He is going to cost about 14 grand for 10 minutes, but what can possibly go wrong?
Exactly. It was no harm to Jason. It was the wrong crowd, by the way. The PFA Awards crowd is the toughest crowd I know, let me tell you right now. As ever, just before we go, by the way, we have a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on, guys, but there is, and there has been every day, Roughie, since we've been on for 18 weeks, a statement. We always get a statement that comes out on the show, and it's only moments away, because I'm just looking there, and the Joint Response Group are just about to release a statement, so God knows what that's about, but I'm about to keep, in fact, I think I might have it here from the SPFL. But on that note, let me say this to you. We're talking about players. Alan Shearer, Roughie, it's his birthday today. He scored 260 goals in the Premier League in England. I'm not sure anybody is ever going to better that. I think Rooney was something like 40-odd goals behind him. I can't see anybody beating that record. For me, he was one of the ultimate strikers.
Yeah, I got a chance to see the Sky Sports bit of his career, and it was absolutely fantastic. Particularly in his younger days, the goals that he was scoring were absolutely fantastic. And you're right, I don't think there's enough players hang about the league that long that are going to beat him. So, no, I think that record's pretty intact as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, did you play against them, Stephen, or was it way beyond when you kicked it in? Just a noise.
He was long gone.
Yeah. He's some player in his day, though, wasn't he? Great. You know what I liked about him, and you loved this as well. He was a right noise up, wasn't he?
He had an angry streak about him. I kind of caught, obviously, the second half of his career, but Also, he done it in a Newcastle team that were a very good team, but not of your Man Uniteds and Arsenals of his later era where they're getting chance after chance in a game. So that shows you the quality he had.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, here's the Joint Response Group update. They're outlining a wide range of measures agreed with the Scottish Government to reinforce Scottish football's commitment to public health and the adherence to the protocols. So you can tell right now, and I'm going to try and speed read this as quick as I possibly can, but you can tell this is a reaction to the volleyball and goalie situation. So the measures are in enforcement. The Joint Response Group has worked to ensure that existing rules will be strengthened to include the provision of sanctions for players who do not adhere to the specific football protocols or government guidelines. This will encompass recent breaches, and further details will be provided tomorrow. Immediately on that, Tam, that means that he's in for some kind of penalty tomorrow.
Absolutely. And I do agree with Stevie Robinson in that it shouldn't be the industry that is punished, it should be the individual. The bottom line is that if one person in a factory with a 5,000 strong workforce broke the rules, you wouldn't expect the 5,000 to be punished. You wouldn't expect every factory that is churning out the same product, in this case football, to be punished. So I think it should be down to the individual. I mean, what the Aberdeen players did up in the city centre on the Saturday night was stupidity. If I wasn't one to be as harsh as that, I would call it maybe naivety. And certainly what Ball and Goalie did by popping out of Spain, coming back, no quarantine, and sheer stupidity as well. So I don't see how, for example, Ball and Goalie jumping on a plane to Spain should mean that, Motherwell, St Mirren, whoever, are not allowed to go out and play football. That would be bonkers. So I would applaud that move if it does basically punish the guilty party.
Yeah, I think, as Stephen mentioned there at the top of the programme as well, and I'm just looking at further down in this measure here, players are aware of the rules that are in place. There are grey areas every now and then where maybe they think they're doing it right and they're clearly not doing it right. The evaluation that's here on this is in order to provide government health officials with the necessary confidence that Scottish football can return safely and in accordance with relevant government guidelines and football protocols, the SFA has agreed that the return to training for clubs out with the Premiership, which includes all organised adult football over 18, will be delayed until at least the 24th of August, pending updated government guidance on the 20th. And that's basically they're slowing down other forms of football coming back, Roughie, just at this moment to see if there's a period where we can basically follow the rules.
Yeah, I mean, obviously targeting that area, they're not getting tested the same way as the professional players are. So you have to be more eager, and keep your eye on that and hope that a spike doesn't come in any particular distance. So, no, I think it's just awareness for me now. I mean, Stephen's already talked about what they're doing at their club, and I'm sure it's the same at every club. And if any footballer doesn't get it, then obviously anything that falls on him, he deserves everything he gets.
Yeah, okay. Just briefly, who's going to win the Champions League now, Stephen?
I'm going to say Man City.
Right. Okay. Roughie, who did you pick?
I'm still PSG. Well, for the last 4 years, I've been PSG, so I'm just hanging on in there. They seem to fail at the last moment, but they got through last night. I had every confidence in them. So I'm hanging on in there.
Roughie, I was at 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I was just texting you. I was going, your team's getting pumped out. And I looked at the game and I thought, I cannot believe this shower. This is a jammy mob, if ever, Tam. 2 minutes to go. They're going out of the Champions League and they score 2 goals.
Brilliant. I would maybe then side with that. But who's actually left in it, Peter?
Well, Barcelona are still in there. Bayern Munich, I think, are possibly one of the favourites.
Right, I'll go with Man City.
Yeah, oh, there you are. You can, by the way, the enthusiasm is written all over his face there. Absolutely.
You know, I can't care less about that. You know,
I know.
they're showing Line of Duty again for the very first series. Get your eyeballs into that. To the Champions League.
Yeah, just out of curiosity,
shambles.
Because we've been in lockdown for 18 weeks, Stephen, we've all tried to keep each other sane by suggesting, various box sets, various programs. We've done The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. We've been into Ozark. Roughie suggested a few movies which really don't really merit as mentioning them. But what about yourself? What is the type of thing that you've watched that you've thought, oh, that was brilliant?
Ozark was one of the first. Watched a documentary about Sea Life Centre, about Blackfish it's called. Very good. And Icarus is the one about a guy who shows what kind of doping and cycling does. They're quite good ones to catch up on.
Yeah, good. I'm happy with that, Tam. I watched something last night, Tam, that I think you would absolutely love. Fahrenheit 11/9, Michael Moore on the American politics and Trump winning the election. Absolutely priceless.
I've seen it. I've watched all his stuff, Bowling for Columbine, and all the other great documentaries he does. And Big Michael Moore's brilliant. No stranger to a steak pie supper, Peter, is he?
He's absolutely. He's a big lad, I have to tell you. Listen,
big boy.
Yeah, absolutely. To all the people who've sent lots of great messages welcoming Stephen to the team, thank you very much. We try and provide you with as much football knowledge across all our team. We really value the contribution of all of our teammates, and hopefully this is the big question, Tam. It's a worry, but it's obviously something we've got to check with Stephen as well. And it's quite simply, we will abide by the guidelines. We've stuck to it rigidly with Nicola, but when she gives us the all clear to go out and have our first staff party, we are just wondering if you will be allowed to join the team for the camaraderie, the team spirit. That's all I'm saying to you, Naisy. Will that be available to you? Will you be open to it round about Christmas?
Hopefully. Learn a few seasoned pros and then the art of a night out, so...
Well, we're not asking them again. It cost too much the last time.
See, you got it. It's all in the wording. I can't even. I thought, Tam, you would have got him with that one, but Roughie, absolutely priceless. Listen, we've enjoyed having you on today. First class. Fingers crossed that it all goes according to plan for Hearts, and you get back there playing. Just out of curiosity, before we go, how's the fitness?
Good. One positive for the lockdown was it kind of gave it a good time for myself. Just let the body kind of recharge and all the wee niggles kind of settle down. So went on for a bit longer than ideally would like, but now that we're back, it's back into the kind of swing of it.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Listen, great to have you on board with the team. Stevie Naismith will be back with us next Thursday. Tam, as ever, with us as well. Don't forget, if you like, share and follow on Facebook, thank you very much to the thousands upon thousands who are clicking, liking, sharing and following with their friends. And also on YouTube, costs you absolutely nothing. You subscribe to our channel. The figures are in Monday to Friday, Scotland's #1 football show. The figures have been astronomical. Join the football family, and tomorrow Charlie Adam will be with us to give us his thoughts on football and his angle, as well as Roughie with me too. So join us tomorrow on Friday, usual time, YouTube and Facebook at 4 o'clock. Really looking forward to that. And to Stevie, Tam and Roughie, thanks for contributing today, and thanks to you for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit